All right, welcome to football today, July 12th, 2024. No Chris Rose today. I don't know where Chris Rose is, where in the world he is. But he's not here today. So I'm here with Justin Penik, as always. And we got Nate Tice of
Yeah.
Yahoo Sports covering the NFL. Been following you for a long time, and it's cool to get I have a platform to bring you on, man. How you doing?
Oh, no, thanks for having me. I'm fired up. Yeah, you downsized. You got the only person with a name shorter than Chris Rose. You went from
Uh,
9
well,
letters to 9 letters to 8. That was it. Yeah, that's how you do it. Someone's on
we're
vacation, you get someone half off. It's good.
yeah, trying to simplify the show.
It's
Um,
perfect.
we were talking about it beforehand, and sometimes it's like we feel like it's evil to talk about the Giants on this show because we do it so much on our other platform. What are your thoughts on the Hard Knocks so far with the Giants?
I always just love because I think we all know that they have, final cut, they being whatever team is featured on Hard Knocks. So what gets put out there is always interesting to me. Whether how brash this team thinks they are, how open this team thinks they are, how boring this team is, and that they don't want anything. And so, like seeing the off-season one, I was interesting. I've only watched an episode and a half, but then I've seen every clip possible, so I might as well have seen every episode. But it is just interesting to me what kind of gets put out there because they obviously want to leak what they want to leak. This is an open leakage. That's what they're kind of doing. And it's kind of fun for me to see that they just went, we wanted a quarterback so badly. Can you see how bad we wanted a quarterback? Did you guys see how bad we wanted a quarterback? Okay, well, I just want to make sure you guys saw how bad we wanted a quarterback. But here's our quarterback, Daniel Jones.
Which is very
But
funny because we thought there was no chance they were gonna we knew they wanted to trade up for
No.
three.
No, don't say we.
I and most people thought there was no chance that was gonna happen, and Justin was like, "Oh, I'm excited for all this," and
It's television.
everyone was telling Justin, "Nah,
it's
you're not gonna see any of that." And then when you see I had like the double take, like, wait, did he say go over to the Patriots when Joe Shane walked over? I'm like,
yeah,
oh my god, they're actually showing it.
It's
And
happening.
obviously all the quarterback meetings, which were pretty fun to watch and spark debate
Balancing the
within all the
pain
guys.
of revisiting how, what maybe could have been if the Patriots were willing to listen to a haul of an offer that and we'll get to that offer. I don't think they're planting this seed for nothing. Like if this is television, and if you think about a story that they're trying,
yeah,
HBO and HBO's trying to tell a story, and the Giants are part of that story. I don't think they're planting this seed for nothing. So I don't think this is the last we're going to hear of the Giants and the Patriots possibly talking about pick three. But the pain of balancing of knowing how close we were in April and now revisiting it, but being excited that they're actually showing it, but also having pain that the Giants don't have Drake May. So
yeah. I know, and it's yeah, and I know I probably guys know, but pretty high on that old Drake May guy. So
yeah,
I don't want to I don't want to
First
bury
question.
it in. I'm trying to like
Yeah,
temper myself from going like, yeah, it's a good one too that you guys missed out on.
First
without all the
question. Drake
jargon.
May is sick, right?
He's sick. Yeah, he's super
Yeah.
sick. It's
There you go.
I still feel like the John Travolta and Pulp Fiction meme where I'm looking around the living room where I was like, what happened to the bandwagon that should have been built around this guy? I think he's awesome. I had him as QB 1A to 1B with Caleb Williams. I thought they were both sick. I was kept referring to the term purple chip, which is $500 chip, as opposed to a blue chip. Is that I thought those guys were legitimate franchise builders. So like those are the ones that, and that's why even with the Patriots discussion leading up into the draft process, I kind of got asked like, what would you take for you to move out of this? I go, well, if you love a guy, you love a guy, you take him, which is also the downside of that is the Michael Penix experience with the Falcons. But it's also, all right, well, if we love a guy, then why would we move out of it? Because you usually do everything possible to get your hands on that guy. So for me, it was if it was Jane Daniels, who I was lower on, I was like, well, maybe I'd move back if I were the Patriots because I don't know if he's the guy there for me. I don't know if he's the guy I would take at 3 with all the stuff I need to build. But May is the type of dude that you build around. So I understood to me that the Patriots are trying to move up. Other teams, I heard the Broncos liked him, the Vikings loved him. Other teams had ID'd him as their guy. So the fact that the Patriots stood pat, it made sense. No pun intended. Made sense, like in the long run, why they did. But yeah,
The whiteboard stuff was fun and seeing Brian Dable light up a little bit. Obviously the Drake May one got the most reaction, but what I thought was cool is even though the Giants had no shot at Caleb Williams, is that Caleb and Jaden Daniels drew up the same play, except for Caleb had it at the number 3 as like the vertical fade or skinny post. And you could see Brian Dable's eyes light up like, "Oh, shit, like, you think you can throw that as the
Yeah.
number 3?" And, brought up Brett Favre because the Giants run that play all the time, like, that was their bread and butter 3rd down last year, and you could see Brian Dable's eyes light up like, "Oh, wow. You put that as a number 3 and throw it versus, 2 high coverages and shit and throw back shoulders." That was pretty cool
Yeah.
to see Dable's eyes light up with that.
Yeah, it was because he picked the playoff empty too, which is kind of just how
I
Caleb
think they
Williams
all
is.
did. Or no, they,
No, no, no.
May had the angle in it.
May went with a nice, beautiful all answer read play. So that one like was good with me. No, but Caleb's was good too. Like as far as that, as far as empty, but it's just hilarious that because the question I think was you had to pick a play and you have to run it 70 times if we're running 70 ball plays and calling 40 something passes. What play would you pick, right? So picking a play out of empty is hilarious to me because that means that's all on the quarterback to be right. So Caleb's just going, yeah, I got it. Like, which is just, I think, very, very fitting.
I wonder if they were prepped because I remember the Giants, they use that a lot, but versus the Bills, I did a video on it. They ran that, shock or, juke and high. They
Yeah.
ran that 9 times in that game, and, like, every single one was successful, like, almost every single 3rd down they went to it. So it was cool to
It's a
see,
staple.
yeah,
Yeah, like because when especially in the NFL because it's the formation rules. Like so you get so many 3-by-2 stuff. So it's a lot of all right. Well, a lot of the stuff is also going to be quick game and or 5-step timing, 5 under center, but 3 out of gun. So if you're going, so shock, stick, quick game concepts, those are 3-man quick game concepts. Triple slant is another one. Like, so there's not a lot of other plays that are 3-man quick game concepts. And what teams are doing now, the Seahawks have been doing this with Waldron, who's with the Bears now, is that they go quick game and then they do the dig on the backside. What these guys are doing, what they're all talking about. So they're going quick game into 5-step timing. That's like the new kind of the new fun play that like catch all play for everybody now.
Justin.
Sorry to jargon it up. I
No,
know
no, yeah,
jargon
no,
is a
we like
No.
total thing this week. So sorry to throw that some verbiage up right there.
No, I kind of want you to jargon it up a little bit more because
Okay.
one of the things that I've been reading from you is your 2nd-year quarterback series that you've
Yeah.
been doing.
My June filler.
And particular, well, yeah, no, yeah, I think this is the time of year to kind of have these kind of conversations. I
Yes.
even want to ask you about your data and trends that will define the 2024 season too, but we'll get to that. But I want to get to CJ Stroud. Speaking of fun quarterback play,
Yeah.
I think like there's a natural worry, and I've said this before in football today, and Bobby's told me, and I think for probably a similar reason that you're going to say of why I shouldn't be worried that the league may start to figure out what CJ Stroud and Bobby Slowick are doing after 1 year together, because I think the NFL is always just good at adjusting to everybody. I think that's inherent.
Mhm.
Now, tell me what CJ Stroud did, Bobby Slowick did, but particularly Stroud with just really good quarterback play to maybe negate some of these worries that he may be figured out in your mind, and maybe how he could even get better into 2024 with his play.
Uh, how he performed, and you don't not even just I wouldn't say statistically because I want to say they're middle of the pack, but on 3rd downs and in the red zone is kind of why I'm excited about him. The straight drop back stuff. That offense does have some training wheels in it because it's the Kyle Shanahan offense. They run a lot of play action concepts, leak these gimme plays. Like anyone can kind of do it. But what makes Stroud so awesome is they do all those drop back stuff that these other quarterbacks will do on 3rd down and other passing downs, and he is taking a lot of high throws when there's high low options, and guys that do that are gonna hit. Guys that do that, it's more sustainable because they are already doing the more aggressive option. And the fact that he doesn't, if you, I mean, just watch him, he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks already, like in recent memory, I think. That's another reason why I think the stuff he's doing is like if you just watch him, like that's just a very real thing with him is his accuracy on that stuff, his decision making on those drop back plays. That's why that stuff is sticky to me. It's the types of play that's sticky. It's the straight drop back, working over the middle, progressing, pushing the ball, especially against man, or pushing the ball when there's a high low option. I mean, so many of he had a high A dot, as far as pushing the ball there. And again, it's not juiced up play action numbers. If you just strip all of his stuff down, it's non play action stuff, just straight dropbacks. He's a top 5, top 6 guy statistically and just eye test. So just watch him as a kind of a like as a former quarterback too, is that him, Dak, and Kirk Cousins are kind of the guys I always come back to as like if I'm teaching a high school kid quarterback, a ninth grader, like I'm going to show him some Stroud stuff because his stuff is so just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the timing is really idealistic, and also just his mindset of how he pushes the ball. So that's why I think sorry, I'm just gonna keep going on it because the offensive line too wasn't great last year, and he was doing this all with bad offensive line play. And so even if the offensive line is just average, that even more than the Stephon Diggs stuff, that's what's got me more excited about what this offense could be. So yeah, no, just a lot of stuff that I usually think of as sticky quarterback play. Some people are getting pretty ahead of themselves about the Texans defense. I think that's actually not as good as people are making them up to be, but I do think the offense and CJ Stroud are very real.
Yeah, we had Kurt Warner on, and he's in love with the guys who can do the full field reads, right? And CJ Stroud falls into that bucket, and he's like, "Yeah, that's awesome that you can catch on to this that they're doing, but those guys are always going to have answers."
Right.
What I have no doubt that they're going to be successful offensively. What I'll be interested to see is with the 20+ yard throws because we were doing notes for something, and I was going to see like best deep ball seasons, and I was shocked. CJ Stroud has the best deep ball passer rating in NFL history since it's been being tracked by PFF. Like I was shocked. So obviously, I don't know if you can duplicate that, but is there anything that you see that might stop them from pushing it 20+ next year?
Teams at the end of the season started figuring out that you could blitz them on early downs because they ran so much play action. And that was because, again, offensive line injuries and it puts pressure on the running back. And they were just they just couldn't handle it. They had bad rules or just something. It was something teams really started to attack. And so, like, that's one thing is like maybe teams heat him up more. It's the thing was Stroud against the blitz when he's dropping back is like dynamite. So it's like, all right, hopefully they run play action. So you're kind of leaning into the punch a little bit there. Okay, usually play action is the easy stuff that we don't want to blitz because they can wad it up and dice you down the field. But against them, you almost as a defense want to blitz them as they do that play action stuff. So that's one thing I always thought was kind of a weakness with them. But again, if the offensive line's healthy and gels can play more than a couple games together, maybe it becomes a lot more of a cohesive kind of thing. Their run game was below, I mean, poor last year. But they're gonna run the ball like slow. And this is kind of something I kept trying to emphasize to people. They're like, well, they should just pass it 50 times. It's like, well, their offensive line sucks, and this is the formula. Like if you sign up with the Shanahan coach, they're gonna stick to the formula, give or take. So only so many guys have Stafford. So they're gonna kind of stick to we're running this amount on first and second down to set up everything in the second half. And that's what they do. And so what they did was they got Mixon. They're hoping for some more offensive line stuff. So they're going to probably some frustrating games where they're not running the ball well. And maybe if you can catch them if you're going against this team. I will say one thing as Stroud, as far as just Stroud playing, I think this will always be a frustration with watching him run a little bit. Go like just go. He's a creative thrower, but sometimes I just want him to just use his legs. But it's kind of cool to see this kind of retro modern quarterback. This guy that wants to hang in the pocket and fireballs all over the field. So it's kind of one of those just more like I'm complaining about, the steering wheel in a Ferrari.
You
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned their defense, and you may not be as high on them. They added Danielle Hunter. I think Danico Autry is a really underrated move for them. What are some of your worries with the defensive unit?
Linebackers, which is still was their worry last year and still is. I know I like Aziz Al-Shir as much as anybody else, but I think sometimes he's one of those guys that's a name recognition game where people recognize the name, they go, "Oh, he's good, right?" No, it's like you recognize the name because it's like a bingo filling it in, not like because you get bonus points. So I think he's more like a mid LB2. Now has to be the Mike there as a linebacker one. That was a big blemish with this defense last year. I think with this type of defense and through the head coach with D'Amico Ryans, yeah, he emphasizes a lot with defensive line play, those guys playing like banshees and just going. But everybody's kind of forgotten about Fred Warner and how important he was to those 49ers defenses that he had. They were able to run these simplistic zone coverages. I would say not simplistic, but just zone coverages, staple zone coverages over and over because Fred Warner wiped out everything over the middle of the field. So I think that's one thing that's kind of getting lost in the sauce with some of their defense play. Everyone's kind of going, oh, look at their defensive line. Danico Autry, I like him too. Daniil Hunter, all this stuff. But I think everyone's going, oh, yeah, to the moon. But I think it's more there. This is a defense that can get caught. I still think you're gonna be able to run on them. I think play action, they're gonna get caught down the spine a little bit, same way they were last year. So I think this is going to be a defense that can get caught with explosive plays, and you can run on them a little bit. So I think it's more of a middle of the pack defense. With having said all that, the variable of having a high end defensive pass rush that can. So not saying it's bad, just saying that it's going to be up and down based on the pass rush.
I'm hoping my guy Christian Harris. I know he had a really good postseason, but also he has like
Yes.
a 20% missed tackle rate, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's not great. I'm hoping
He's
year 3. We going into year
space.
3 for Christian Harris, so I'm hoping he can maybe break out a little bit more because that was such a fun postseason to watch. But then you look at some of the other stuff, it's like, oh, when you actually watch maybe every game of the Houston Texans, I'm sure it's a little bit different.
Space isn't his friend. But then again, having even say that, I didn't even mention Derek Stingley's a star. Like, so they have a star corner, which is also helps. But then the other corner at positions, we'll see. They might have a rookie playing out there, but rookie corners is who that hang under your hat with rookie corners. So it's just more question marks than I think a lot of people looked at that defensive line and just go, oh, look at this. They're cranked up all the way. Yeah, they got a good defensive line, but I think there's more weaknesses than people realize.
You talked about running the ball and how, hey, for these Shanahan offenses who, hey, I'm a stats guy. I'm a stats and the fly by the seat of my pants guy in terms of when I'm behind a microphone. Bobby's a big film guy. You're a big film guy. And, you know, I sometimes fall victim of the being like, oh my God, like Kyle Shanahan, EPA per play, and it's so great. But then
Right.
I'm also sitting here and saying how, oh, well, you got to throw on early downs. You got to throw on early downs. But that's, like you said, and I sometimes fall victim of saying that Bobby Slowick, we're a little too run heavy on first down, and I want to unleash CJ Stroud a little bit on early downs. But I thought you had a good point of this is the formula and it works for a certain reason. So
Yeah.
your data and trends that will define the 2024
Ooh.
season. One of the things you did is basically the run game is making a renaissance return in the NFL. So I want you to talk about that, and especially I want you to geek out. Maybe you and Bobby geek out a little bit about the impact that tight ends have on that as well.
Oh yeah.
Some of the takeaways that you came on that overall exercise you had.
Yeah. Kind of. Actually, there's cool defense stuff too. But the with the run game right now, I think it's just that teams have realized they need these all answer runs, which has in the past been outside zone, and outside zone. And when I say the all answer runs, is no matter what the defensive front is, no matter what the look is, they can block it up. Like, no matter what, it's going to have an answer to it. I think outside zone hit its limits because defenses were like, oh, everybody's running this. Well, we got to figure out to nullify it. So let's take the head off the quarterback when he tries to bootleg. Let's, if they try to slide a guy, let's knock that guy off his path. Like, they kind of start figuring out answers. So I thought the Rams were the best kind of microcosm of this, of any team, was they went from the heaviest zone team to the heaviest team of running duo, which is my own personal favorite run. So I'm gladly going to talk about this. And duo is power without the puller, and power is pulling the guard. Duo is an at you run. It is downhill, and then the running back gets horizontal. On a zone run, it's horizontal, and then the back gets vertical. So you're just kind of taking the angles differently. The Rams have invested in size. Their center, now Steve Avila, is going to be like 320 something pounds. He's gigantic, and they're just going to beef you up. And this matters because, well, as teams were, okay, outside zone, we have scheme answers to it. Now we have speed answers to it as defenses gotten faster and lighter. All right, so offenses went, well, what beats lighter and faster? Big, brawny size. So duo, that kind of run is a way, I think, a new staple that other teams are going to start leaning on, is that they're just going to beat teams with a hammer. You kill people with a hammer. That's that's what you kind of do. And I think that's a run that's going to get emphasized more, as and a personnel kind of usage that's going to emphasize more, as kind of the meta of outside zone kind of hit its limit. It's you look at any advantage any team has ever had, there's a maximum to it. Just like you were just talking about, oh, throw the ball more on early downs. Like, there's always going to be a cap to it. Even if we think there's not, there's always going to be some type of ceiling to it. So I think outside zone met its limit against quarters defenses, because they have better answers with the safeties. The fronts have different answers as well. Yada yada. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But I think there's just also you have to have a variety in the run game, meaning, okay, not just running duo every single time. Okay, now I have to have a change up off it. Now I have to have a third pitch off of it. I have to run split zone. I have to run inside zone. I have to run an end around. Last year, there's more end arounds run, according to SIS, than ever on record. And the Dolphins led the way. So teams are just they're trying to do all these things. They're taking it to defenses and taking advantage of their own aggression. And I think these are the smart teams are going to start looking at it if they have the personnel for it. And I think most do, because I think it's easier to teach. And why they're doing it is just defenses have more variety. They move more post snap. They're lighter. They're faster. They just have so much more stuff going on post snap. Offenses are like, how do we wad it up and make it easier on ourselves? And I think, kind of duo is leading the charge along with a couple other runs. Yeah.
Yeah. You said duo is your favorite. I'm a counter. I think this part, I like counter a lot. I think partly because I
Beautiful.
played tackle and it was like the one time I got to pull and lead up through the hole. But and you've seen that kind of grow, like you said, with some of the lighter defenses. And like you said, the running game trying to like making a renaissance return because everything in the NFL is cyclical.
Oh yeah.
Um,
But
back on the
the
quarterback.
tackle pull stuff is like that's coming back too. I mean, the Bills are the ones doing the most. I'm sure teams are going to copy what they were doing last year too. They pulled Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown all the time. Dart, I believe, is the nomenclature.
Yeah, yeah.
Preferred nomenclature. Dart. Yeah, tackle pull though. But yeah, that I think. Yeah. So speaking of that, that's another run. I think it's going to get copied a little bit more.
To to get back to the quarterbacks, this is kind of a more bland question, but what quarterback do you see making the biggest jump and fall in the just maybe in perception in 2024?
Perception. Oh, I love that question.
Or whatever you feel better about.
Yeah, no,
Just
let's take it all
we
directions.
don't need to do a Trevor Lawrence, do you know ball
I
thing.
I haven't had a podcast in a month and a half. I'm pent up with my takes, so this is great. We'll go. So I think the biggest jump in perception is Jordan Love. I think right now I dropped him as a top 5 quarterback on Mina Kimes' show, and you would have thought I killed a cat. I like just I couldn't believe it. I thought I had some more people behind me. Did we watch the end of the season? Because I think it's very real, and I think he's a dude, and so I think people are going to go, oh, and it being with the Packers helps. You're a national team and all that. So I think perception wise, and I think he's already there, but he's bad. He's banging on that door of the very good elite tier. I think he's got a lot of traits that I really like. So Jordan Love I think is going to make a jump. Anthony Richardson is another one.
Yeah, Richardson's a popular one. It's just we didn't get
Super
to see him
high.
at all really last year.
Yeah, and I did a little study on him. Justin referred to did the June series on him, and I watched the kind of smattering of 4 games. But again, he does very real stuff, stuff that I think translates to a long term career. And on top of it, he's a 0.000001% athlete. So I think
Is he
that
seriously above 250 pounds now?
yeah, I think I think they said 255. So he's like
Doesn't look it.
Culpepper. I know.
Doesn't look it.
So it's like Culpepper, but like faster.
Yeah.
So I know. So and just what I hear about him, just a great person and just a hard worker. It's just a lot of stuff that usually adds up to good things. And I just think, yeah, I'm way high on him right now. So that's another guy I think it's a big jump in perception, and I just think real play. He's so young too. A dropper.
I want to talk
uh,
about
oh yeah,
touch upon Love first. What do you think is something that could stop him from doing that? Like, what were some of the because last year was a little up and down with him. What are
yeah.
some of the things that you like think could be the biggest thing to stop him from like taking that next step or just staying at where he was at the end of the year?
He's a true gunslinger. So getting caught and having a year where he gets punished, or a couple games in a row where he gets kind of dinged a little bit and costs him a game where he gets 3 picks and a half kind of thing. He's just going to have that aggressive mentality. And I think just that type of quarterback can go through that kind of variance, especially with his aggressive mindset. I think maybe sometimes if the supporting cast around him doesn't improve anywhere near the level I'm hoping they do. I think they will, but they are young. Young can go any direction. It can level off, it can drop. Guys get hurt, guys don't develop, guys get in fight with coaches. Like a lot of stuff can happen. So that happens too. The supporting cast doesn't take the leap or the mini leap that I think they're gonna as well. And so that doesn't allow him to kind of get away with some of the mistakes and growing pains that he's going to do. So he is still super young too. Like that's the thing too, is that he was drafted super young, even though he sat a lot of years, a few years. Like he's not that much older than Penix or Bo Nix, like those two, the Bixes. So like what I think just that that's maybe the one thing is that he kind of gets punished for some of those aggressive tendencies, maybe a little too often.
One of the things that we talked about a couple weeks ago, Bobby and I had this realization that, you know what? As we were growing up, and this is especially me, like I grew up with Philip Rivers, I grew up with Eli Manning, grew up with Big Ben, grew up with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, where these guys are at the line, they're making calls, they're commanding their offense. And that element of it is gone. And one of the things that I think Bobby and I were discussing is I agree with you. I could see Jordan Love having that jump in perception this year, especially because of how he finished the year. He went toe to toe with that 49ers defense. Bad interception to end the game, but I mean, it was an incredible postseason performance for him, in my opinion. Some really good quarterback stuff. But one of the things is that is this LaFleur, or is this like Jordan Love really having that command of the offense and the same command that Rodgers had for quite a while too? Once Rodgers actually bought into what LaFleur was trying to do. So I don't know. Just maybe I don't know if we want to talk about Love specifically, or even just an NFL trend in general. Of there's hot mics on these fields. We're not hearing quarterbacks talk as much at the line, adjust things at the line, and that's not really a question. But I want to throw it out there and see your reaction.
The the give and take of we want more motion, we want more tempo, we want pass, 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 we want shifting and motioning is you don't get the quarterback sheriffhood uh anymore. They if you want motion, you want shifting, quarterback can't stop everybody and get to what he wants to do. Like you
Mhm.
gotta snap it and go. And that's why those offensive systems put more on the center to set things because they're saying set it and forget it because we don't have time to go, hey, no, this guy's the mic. This guy is, we have to slide left here. We have to Liz this. We have to yada, yada, yada. They say boom, boom, one. Okay, we could do it once and then we're going. And then shift, motion, 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 jet, jet, return, jet. Tyreek Hill looks and squats down and then shifts out. Like all the stuff that we want to see and we laugh at. That stuff takes timing though, because you have to get it off before the play clock. That stuff takes verbiage as well. So that takes time in the huddle. That takes certain personnel groupings. So all that specificity, oh my God, specificity will also kind of create a limitation on be able to put more on the quarterback to just go, hey, chill. Hey, you get here, draw stuff up in the sand, point guys out, and the stuff that we consider true quarterback play. Dak Prescott is the one that has free reign and the one that's been able to do that the last 5-ish years, 7 years, 6 years. And why he's able to do that is he's never been in that type of offense. He's never been in a Shanahan offense. He's been in a Scott Linehan offense, Callahan a little bit, Kellen Moore, now McCarthy, which is kind of a hybrid offense right now. But that Linehan offense was even stuff that my dad did. He was my dad's offense coordinator of the Vikings in the early 2000s, and that was on quarterback in the center to figure things out, whether it's Brad Johnson, Culpepper, or whoever. So I think that when you were looking at like those guys, you saw Herbert do it a little bit last year because Kellen Moore became his coordinator, and even Joe Lombardi is a Sean Payton guy. That's not a Shanahan guy. So those that offensive system, if the quarterback can do it, will put more on the quarterback, and that's where you can hear the stuff we want to hear that we have fun with, the Peyton Manning stuff. But I think that's what there's that give and take. This was the fight between the I wouldn't say fight, but the balance that Aaron Rodgers and LaFleur had to get into at the Packers their first year was Rodgers wants to control everything. LaFleur's like, hey, I want to do my jet motion shit. So like, all right. And then they figured it out and he won 2 MVPs. Cool.
Yeah.
So and another time that there's a hybrid of a quarterback that wants to do his shit and an offense coordinator wants to do his shit, 2016 Falcons. Matt Ryan wants to do his stuff, point out the mic, ID everything, get the protection right, get everything right. And Shanahan wants to do his stuff. So how you do it is, hey, first and second down's mine, third down's yours. And then we have a couple plays that we can, do our things on. So I think that's where Tom Brady has alluded to this as well. I think that's why it's not a dying breed. It's more that half the offenses are Shanahan guys. That offensive system doesn't do this. Like that's not part of it. They have to have trust in the quarterback. The Rams will do it because they have Matthew Stafford. And Rams offense feels different than these other guys, doesn't it? They run different a little bit. It just doesn't feels a little bit different always. And that's because they have a dude that can do that. So yeah, I think that's just really what it comes down. It's just the offensive system and flavor that you want. That it's going to just lead to different kind of tempos of play.
You I do wanna get your faller, but you keep on mentioning shit that gets my attention. You mentioned Kellen Moore going over to Philly,
Oh
and
yeah,
then obviously Vic Fangio from, Patricia and Desai, like, that team also, addressed some of their issues. What do you think this year's gonna look like for Philly? Because if there's any team that, like, uh, unless it's all Sirianni driven, I feel like they're not gonna look like the team that collapsed at the end of the year, and not maybe the Super Bowl team, but, top 2, 3 team in the NFC.
I'm trying to figure them out. I think they're too good to fail. They just have too many dudes. I truly think that it's like this offense. I don't think can be worse than 12th or 14th. If any nerd stat we want to look at, EPA, DVOA, success rate, yards,
And I
points.
feel like that'd be a failure if they were 12th or 14th, honestly.
Yeah, and I think Kellen Moore is at the very least a B to B plus offense
Agreed.
coordinator. Like that's where he's at in my book. But it's one of the most curious things I have in the entire NFL, and I've kind of written a little bit about this. Is I am fascinated of how that works because I just alluded to two quarterbacks talk about who are there, kind of do the pre-snap sheriff stuff. Dak Prescott and Justin Herbert. Those are the only quarterbacks that Kellen Moore has been offense coordinator of. He's only been an offensive system that puts it on the quarterback, that lets him do all those things. In Philadelphia, that's been Jason Kelsey, and he just retired. So it's a coordinator that's only put it on the quarterback with a quarterback that's had it all on the center before, and that center just retired. That's fascinating to me. I just want to see how they make it work. I think Kellen's more smart enough to make some things work, but I'm just fascinated how Jalen what more gets put on Jalen Hurts' plate as well, and like how he plays more quarterback, as opposed to just being a big arm and can throw and run around a little bit. So it's a strange fit for me. He's a very much a traditional NFL type of guy. QB run game stuff was something I was curious which way they're going to go. They look like they're going to be more traditional as opposed to, you know, dynamic with maybe some more collegey stuff. So it's an interesting fit. It's been one I've kind of had circled, squared, starred, highlighted. Kind of like a wager I like or something like that. That's just something I've just kind of keep my eye on.
Defensively, I think I love Fangio and like another guy who's kind of had everyone run off of what he does, but no one does it better than him. But like you said, with more like you said, a B level one guy, and then last year it was we covered the Giants, and when the Eagles played the Giants with Wink Martindale defensive coordinator, you're like why the fuck doesn't the team have any answers for the blitz? Like why are they operating
It's
like they're
crazy.
playing a drop eight team? Um, so like you said,
Oh, the Giants
where's that middle
always
ground?
give
Because
him
you look at the year
Wink always give him
before,
issues. Yeah.
you look at the year before, and they were a team that had answers for everything you did defensively. They had an answer for it.
Mhm.
So like, what is that middle ground? Can they get close back to that? Like you said, I do think they're going to bounce back in the NFC. Be fighting for that second team after San Fran with Detroit and whoever else. But it is going to be like you
It,
said, a new test for Jalen Hurts. So let's get to your biggest faller.
Well, it's Jalen Hurts.
Okay.
That was perfect. That was great. No, I think he just public perception wise, I think I'm already there. I'm already there. But I just think what I think people are going to accept kind of what the type of player he is. Maybe what his good and bad side of it is. I think the Todd Bowles, what that wild card game looked like both times last year and 2 years ago, or should be now 3 years ago. Uh, Both times it was the same issues, underlying issues. And we could say some of that's the offensive system. Some of it was, but also some of it was Jalen Hurts' just natural play style. Just he's never had to come up with answers against aggressive blitz teams. You just alluded to with Wink Martindale, and the fact that he's already been paid. He's that when you get if you're already paid, usually you already have these answers kind of solved. So that's kind of that. It's a weird kind of thing that we're saying. Well, we still need more growth of them, and it's like you're already locked in, so you still have question marks about that. He's had, now Jason Kelsey, which is his biggest band-aid for that, has now been taken away. So now he has to find more answers. And this is kind of just ties into the Kellen Moore stuff. The three things that kind of dropped off for him last year was he became a below average QB runner. Their design runs went from one of the best in the league to one of the worst. Bottom three to from top three to bottom three, just with his design runs. He was not getting first downs as efficiently. Their RPOs, they went from the best RPO team to the worst RPO team as far as efficiency. And then they're bad against the blitz, which I think you alluded to, we've all seen. Kellen Moore isn't really an RPO guy. They use the traditional smoke kind of now slant RPOs. Those are more package plays than RPOs. The QB run game I've already alluded to, kind of basic. So it's not like really his strength. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. And then against the blitz, he puts a lot on the quarterback to sort things out. Hurts has never had to do that. So that's a square peg round hole kind of fit for me, where it's like, ooh, those aren't really his strengths, or the strengths are not matching ideally with Jalen Hurts. So, but again, I don't think it's gonna be a poor season. I just think it's gonna be more of a find a good season than second team All Pro like he got a few years ago that I like can't believe.
Who's
So,
like a QB you would like kind of compare him like not style wise, but like tier wise to see like kind of where you're at with him?
oh, tier wise, I had him when I like big boarded it out. He was kind of like in the 16 to 18 tier.
Okay.
So like that's where I see him more. Or like when we did that, I did that draft show with Mina. So I was working that kind of 16, 18 tier, 20 tier. It's kind of guys, Goff is in there, I think. Uh Guys that need help around them. And that's kind of where I'm at with him. And just has blemishes. Like Goff has blemishes against the blitz too when he gets pressured and all those types of things. Can't create it all. A blemish that can limit you. And I don't know. I think Hurts's best season, the Super Bowl run was a little bit more. I know I'm on a Giants pod, but I've said this on national pod, so it's fine. But it's so I just thought even that season kind of got overblown with what he was getting away with. It was just not. We were talking about just Stroud earlier, even Richardson. Talking about with those guys, that stuff seems more sustainable and sticky. How they win, and Hurts' stuff seems more way up and down. That's fine when you're winning and everything's, but when you're the dude and everything else starts crumbling, the floor better be a little bit more solid. And I still think it's not as high as people have made it out to be, and that's why I still have more marks on him than answers. I think.
You're on a national this is actually our national show, but, I'm higher because I thought through that collapse last year, it was yeah, like you said, he didn't have some of the answers for that stuff, but it just felt like offensively, it's like, what did they do within the week? And then, like you said, I guess this kind of speaks to you where it's like, well, do you expect Jalen Hurts to, become that guy who's setting all this and identifying this and checking to, whatever. Um, but so like you said, it'll be interesting. I think it'd be a great way to figure out exactly who it is because you said Kellen Moore's kind of a B tier offensive coordinator. He's fine. He's not awful. And he's going to put a lot on the quarterback, but you put a lot on this quarterback with this offensive, system. You have Brown, Devontae Smith, Goddard, and Saquon. Like he should be able to do well. Like we saw Dak do really well with Kellen Moore as his offensive coordinator.
Yeah, it's again, and if it weren't so much on Kelsey, I'd maybe have feel a little bit better. Jeff Sowton's still there, and I get that, but Kelsey just did a lot, like yeah, more than most smart centers even do, and so it's a big loss personality wise, and I know and all the hoopla about it, but I think even just as you guys know, just real football, tangible football wise, I think just the trickle down effect is a little greater than I think people are realizing.
So somebody that I thought of as you were talking because Bobby and I recently just talked about the Cardinals for something that we haven't even announced yet for JM football people. So keep an eye on for keep an eye out for that. I thought of Kyler Murray because if you're talking about tiers and we're also talking about biggest jump in perceptions for 2024, I have a really hard time putting a read on a guy like Kyler Murray because everything, was so not I don't want to say great a couple years ago, but situation around him was so bad last year. Comes back, wins 3 games. I feel like the film to get a read on who Kyler Murray is right now as a quarterback. I feel like the film last year and how he played and how he dealt with that situation. And hey, I mean, they were ninth in offensive EPA per play in the games that he played. They were second in rush per EPA per play and then ninth per EPA dropback. So it was good, efficient offensive stuff. But I want to get your read on Kyler Murray. Is he a guy that's also a candidate for a jump in perception into 2024, coming back into people's good graces?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, don't have to twist my arm to talk about the Cardinals. Yeah, no, I'm pretty high on what Kyler can do this year and just that whole offense. I thought that last second half of last year was all great. Like I would say he played pretty overall middling if you just looked at big picture, but if you just watch the actual play down to down, it's the most he ever had to play quarterback. He's the most he ever to be under center. He's doing under center play action stuff. He's always been a great play action deep ball thrower and all that type of stuff. But just really doing all that real quarterback stuff, huddling, Mike identification stuff, handling protection stuff. Like, he's been kind of stunted by some of I'm not saying because of size or anything, but just because like stunted because of just like his like mental growth because of some of the stuff that's like been around him. The Cliff Kingsbury offense is easy by design. It's simplistic to teach so guys can play fast, but maybe doesn't teach long-term growth for quarterback play and maybe underlying stuff. So I think I'm Drew Petzing, their offensive coordinator, what they were doing last year. I'm super I bullish on what they were showing. You already alluded to it. The run game is going to be, I think, a fantastic run game, a top 5 run game. I think they invested more into it Paris Johnson Jr. looks like a star. I like the running backs. I like the offensive line coach. I like their rules. I like the design. We were talking a little bit about the run game diversification. They're the ones that use a lot of fun tight end stuff. Looks like they're going to use more tight end stuff. They did use a ton of 13 personnel with 3 tight ends last year. I think that's only going to increase because of who they drafted, Tip Ryman in the 3rd round. And I think there's kind of a trickle down effect of that. If you go 3
They also
tight
don't really have
ends,
sorry to interrupt you, but
oh no, you're fine.
they don't have the slot option, so the answer to that is to go in the 12. I think they're going to be about
Greg
as
Dortch?
fun as a team can. I'm not the big Dortch guy. They're about as fun as a team
The human torch.
that can be. That probably won't win more than 7 games, just because that defense.
Oh,
is
yeah.
just, the personnel's off, and I'm not the biggest Gannon fan either. But
it's more of a Nick
offense,
Rawls defense. It's true knuckleball shit.
yeah, that offense is just like, and Marvin Harrison Jr. can hit the ground running. And you look at Trey McBride once they got rid of Ertz and Kyler came back.
Yep.
I mean, he was putting up tight end one numbers. Michael Wilson is a guy that they really like, and like you said, they do. They ran a lot of 2 tight end stuff, or even 3 tight end stuff last year. Like, I'm excited. Drew Petzing is probably going to be a head coach next year, in my opinion.
Yeah, if not next year, then yeah, right. They're on. I think the Cardinals as a whole are on the kind of Lions path of the Dan Campbell thing. Just because I think the offensive coordinator is so good, and I just think that they have enough competency and they got the right picks. And I think they just go boom, 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 just ramp up to being good. Not this year. I agree with Bobby that I think it's 7. They're a feisty 7-win team where they're going to upset a couple of teams because they get after them. I just love the offense. It just makes sense to me. They already showed it last year, and then now also you allude to Michael Wilson, number 2. I love Dortch. I really do. That's not even a joke, but my folk hero. But I think with the tight end stuff, there's a cool kind of scheme stuff with it. Was that if you go 3 tight ends, you're kind of with Marvin Harrison Jr. out there as the one receiver, you're daring the defense. Because if they load the box, because you have 3 freaking tight ends out there, that's guaranteed 1-on-1 to Marvin Harrison Jr. If you don't, you can just pound the rock and get 5-yard gains like at an easy clip, in theory. But that's why I'm excited. I think that, like you said, I think they're going to hit the ground running and be a nice feisty team this year.
Can I talk about explosive plays, Bobby?
Yes, talk about explosive plays, Justin.
Okay. In a league that doesn't want you to, and I think it, now that I think it started with Fangio, and I think you see a lot of defensive coordinators since. It's like we're gonna stop the explosive play, right? So I don't want this to sound like no shit Sherlock, and if it does, Nate, you let me know. You let me know, because I've been since the 2020 season, and we covered the Giants. So Daniel Jones went from 2019 to trying to push the ball downfield to Jason Garrett that just took it away from him, and that drove all of us nuts. So I've been beating the Giants need to be more explosive ever since then, and it's much easier said than done. But I want to give you the data and the trend that I think defines every single year. So I do every single year at the end of the year, I do the records of the teams that are in top 10, middle 12, and then bottom 10 of the records of those teams in explosive pass play rankings. I do the records of those teams. So the bottom 10 teams, they had a winning percentage of 37%, 63 and 107. The middle teams, 48.6% at 91 and 96. And top 10 teams, 118 and 69, 63.1%. And it ranges between the high 50s and the low 60s every single year. If you're a top 10 team that produces those explosive pass plays, odds are you're going to win football games. So I think that is the most important stat in football. I think if you win that battle, as long as it's, the game margins within like 0 to 14 points, I don't, try not to count garbage time. I think if you win that category, you win a football game. Am I oversimplifying it? What are your thoughts on that? Run with it.
You and Brian Billick would get along great. Look up toxic rate. That's his theory as well, is explosive play rate plus turnover differential. That explosive play differential plus turnover differential. I mean, but I totally agree, and especially how defenses are playing. They're daring you to have 10-play drives, 4 or 5 yard gains. Even the theory, even if I don't agree with who they casted for this script, the Chiefs are trying to get more explosive, so they just get a bunch of 4-3 guys. Even if I don't, again,
I got so excited because I was going to ask you about that. Like, they've become the low average depth. Like, Patrick Mahomes has mastered it.
Doing it.
Now they got
And
Hollywood and Xavier Worthy. Like, I'm so excited to see the way Andy Reid
I want to
calls
see what
that
he
offense
does.
this year.
Exactly. And I get the theory of what they're trying to do. The best ways to beat the defenses that are popular right now is you beat them over the top or you bloody their nose and you beat them up in the ground. So everything I talked about with the run game stuff, this is the counter to it. Not the counter. This is the complementary part of it is pound the rock and beat them over the top. Defense, it's cyclical. This is the NFL. We're just going in circles. This is NFL play at the turn of the century, the not 1800s, late 1900s, the early aughts. Like this is what it was. So you're spreading to run, you bunch them up, getting heavier personnel to pass and launch it down the field. Get them. You're daring them by personnel groupings. Is another thing. I kind of found the magic number. I believe was 14% was the explosive play or pass rate was kind of like you can be I want to say it was either Final Four team is you had to have a rushing success rate over 39% on first and second down and a explosive pass rate overall of 14%. I think those were my two magic numbers when we did one of those kind of superlative podcasts. And I think the only team that was accepted to that, kind of like in the NBA, it's always like the mid 90s, Houston Rockets are always like exempted from all the stat ones. This version of that's the Chiefs. It's the Chiefs and then everybody else. It's like if you like make this allotment, usually it's like 5 or 6 teams enter the playoffs. It's helped gambling wise too, a little bit, but that's kind of the magic threshold is be able to run the ball efficiently, but you gotta eat up a bunch of first downs at once because that's what I think the Chiefs ran into last year was like their run game was kind of crap for most of the year, and so they said we're tired of making Patrick Mahomes be late career Drew Brees, where it's 4 or 5 yard gain, 4 or 5 yard gain, 4 or 5 yard gain. Okay, magic play. That's exhausting. That makes the play caller and the quarterback have to be right over and over. So they said, let's just eat up 5 first downs at once. That's the math that they're trying to change here, and I'm all for it because that's kind of my overall offensive philosophy, anyways. So I'm glad more teams are kind of maybe going back to the deep ball.
Last question: camp is coming up? Do you have any plans to make it around to any practices or anything, or no?
Oh yeah, Cardinals. Yeah, going to. I'm only going to the only place that's hotter than Las Vegas. Going to Arizona, going to Phoenix, and then I'm going to Minnesota. I requested a couple other teams, but they had me go to Minnesota, but I'm actually pretty interested in that. Not because I get to check out my guy Sam Darnold, but also it's just maybe just check out what some Flores might be up to on defense over there.
We actually just finished notes on the Vikings because we're recording team previews, which is fucking exhausting, by the way, Justin. Um, and yeah, you look at like that defense. They lost some talent on defense, and they're just like Brian. Like I can't remember who it was tweeted out they ran cover zero more than they did cover one. Like the linebackers
Yep.
blitz 20% of the time, the DBs blitz 50. It's like just
This
plays like a fucking coach is like a lunatic, and I love it.
the funniest stat is like it's like percentage of pass rushes featuring 4 pass rushers. So it's like because they drop 8 so much and they blitz so much. So his was just like hysterically low compared. It's like just totally off the graph. It's like every Mahomes stat where it's just totally off the graph compared
Yeah.
to everybody else. Yeah. No, that they're also the quarterback kind of guppy test. Like they make he makes you play real quarterback. Like because play action, he blows up or drops 8, which isn't great against play action because you're just flooding everything. Quick game, he takes away RPOs, he takes away because he drops 8. So he like makes you drop back and pass. So that's why I love Brian Flores because it's kind of like he's not the final boss. He's like Shang Tsung. I don't know. Goro, something like that. Like he's the sub boss, like the second to last boss. Am I going too old of references here? Mortal Kombat
That went
1 and
over
2.
my head.
Yeah, they
I
went
know.
over my head
I
too.
saw Justin just get really Mortal Kombat 1 and 2. God,
Um,
Motaro.
the Giants play them week 1, so let us know what you
Yeehaw.
see. Also,
Ooh.
if you talked to any of the offensive guys, ask them how frustrating it is to run a training camp because we were there the first year of Wink, and it
Oh,
was just like it's like
that's actually why
we were at the point where it's like you can't keep doing this every practice. You can't install an
that's
offense
my
this
lead
way.
question.
You
That's
know,
literally my question.
it's like you can't.
If I could sit
It
down
was
with him,
like you cannot install an offense this way. Like you
it's
have
so
to
hard.
slow this shit down a little bit. It's
And I've
nuts.
always thought about that. I always would have hated being the defensive coordinator at Georgia Tech. You're just like defending
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
freaking triple as you have to go against like all these spread like option teams and stuff like that or chuck it out teams.
Which
No,
is what
I'm excited to go there.
I know we're not getting off the track, but never will amaze me that like Calvin Johnson was on Georgia Tech, and everyone knew too. It wasn't like he was being hidden. Like it was no wide receiver number 21. This guy's
Awesome.
fucking dominant from day one,
And his
and then
quarterback helped the highlight reel because he was so bad.
yeah,
The I am excited too though. They were on my kind of second tier list to check out. Was actually the Giants because I'm excited about the Giants defense. They're
you are.
I am.
The
I like the
secondary really worries us.
I know, but I like the coordinator because I think he's on his stuff. I think he's on the cutting edge.
It'll
Yeah,
be interesting to see what he does
I
away
really do. I'm not
from
making a
Vrabel.
joke here. I
So
think
what do you like the most about Bowen then?
yeah, I was I'm
Maybe we'll just
this is
cut this part
perfect.
out and put it on
It
Talking
took my
Giants.
bait. So he's been doing some not I'm saying gonna say three safety, but not big nickel three safety. Three safety kind of shell that I think is the next step for teams. Him and actually Nick Rollis, the defense coordinator of the Cardinals, they stunk last year because the personnel stunk. But how he used Buda Baker. This is the next step. And what I think it is you're loosening up. You're kind of creating a rover back that can fit in everywhere. Just talk about how many teams use motion shifting before the snap. This lets you kind of hold the pen last. If they're going to shift motion, then now I can slot my guy in wherever he needs to be based on that shifting and motioning. Teams are kind of like sitting in quarters. That was the first step. And quarters is more keep it all in front of us. Hey, we don't have the right answers, but we can blanket this. Okay, we limit to a 6-yard gain. Oh, we got him for a sack there. Okay, we're just limiting. This allows you kind of to get into the coverage you actually want to get to, as opposed to holding on to dear life and just quarters. And it lets you be creative, especially if you have a guy like Buda Baker. But it lets you be creative and where you slot guys. This is where I think who's a kid from Kentucky you guys got they drafted
Drew
Drew
Phillips.
Drew
Phillips.
Phillips. Yeah.
Yeah.
Him is that's why I think it's interesting because that slot role can be the deep post. He can be the deep half player. He can be a blitzer. He is a lot of these slot players that are in the league are these kind of Swiss Army knives. But I think this defensive coordinator actually knows how to use them because how he used Roger McCreary. And so yeah, they are a sneaky dark horse top 10 defense for me.
Oh
I
my god.
because I love that defensive front. If they end up being like 28th, don't bring me back on here and just like flog me. But
I'll DM you though.
Oh,
Angry.
I'm
that's
personally going
fine.
to be. I'm gonna be
That's fine.
pissed.
DMs are open.
I'm getting
That's fine.
excited.
Falcons fans just keep going like putting my head in the you told me Desmond Ritter would be okay. But it was no, but it was just I think with their I love their defensive front. I think that is a great equalizer, but I think their linebacker play is fine. But and I know that the defensive backs, I think Banks is a star or gonna be a star.
Okay.
I really do. But I just think this defense coordinator knows how to make guys better than they actually are. The Titans went through a lot of injuries the last few years, and he kind of just knew how to make them work. He's creative. He's doing stuff that I think the smart or the guys are trendier guys are going to be gravitating towards. So yeah, I'm a little bit higher on them, I think, than them, way higher than I'm on them than probably a lot of the national kind of media.
Yeah, I think that's why they love Nubin so much because he is the guy you can put all over the
Yes,
place. And
yes,
then
that's
with
another
Drew
guy.
Phillips
Yes.
as like he doesn't blitz, but when he does blitz, it's almost 100% of the time and that nickel blitz and
Yep.
whether they rush 5 or drop an end from the opposite side, like it's almost exclusively um that and then like you said just a lot of, rotating the safeties pre and post snap,
That
which is
Yeah,
stuff
and
I
I think
like.
it's interesting. Yeah, I think he's one of the better ones, and that's why I think that's kind of been lost kind of the fold because I think Wink is Wink, and I think that of course losing Wink's gonna get a lot of pub, especially how it ended. Uh, you can't fire me, my phone's off. And I think but I just think now that because Vrabel's such a big personality, I think that the defensive coordinator, the defensive side, kind of got lost in the shuffle of like kind of what they did the last couple of years. They always played better than what their talent was, even though they had nice talent. You mentioned Autry earlier. Jeffrey Simmons is a star. Tierra Tart's a good player, no longer there, but they had decent pieces and stuff. But I think that they always played better, and that's why I'm kind of like I think they're going to play above what they're at right now.
I'm gonna stop asking questions because every time you just mention one word, I'm like, let's talk about Will Levis. But we'll let you go. Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports, appreciate you jumping on. And if you end up getting out the Giants camp, let us know.
Oh, thank you guys so much. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you, Nate.